During my night shift, a 15-year-old homeless girl was brought in as an emergency case. She kept muttering, "They'll come for me tonight." I stayed late to watch over her. At 3:12 a.m., the power cut out. A voice from the hallway called, "Doctor, leave the room now, or you're next." I've worked in emergency medicine long enough to know that some nights stick with you forever. The ones that shake you, haunt you, leave a mark you can't scrub away no matter how many years pass. I thought I had seen it all. Gunshot wounds, overdose cases, families breaking apart in waiting rooms, mothers wailing over children who wouldn't wake up. You grow numb to it after a while, not because you don't care, but because caring too much will eat you alive. But that night? That night was different. It started like any other shift. It was just past 11, the ER still buzzing with life. A drunk driver had been brought in an hour earlier, bloodied but alive, the people in the other car less lucky. A homeless man with a deep infected wound on his leg was cursing at a nurse, refusing treatment. A teenage girl sat in the waiting room with a swollen eye, her mother claiming she fell. Just another Tuesday night in Chicago. I was scribbling notes at the nurse's station when the paramedics burst through the doors with a stretcher. That wasn't unusual. The way they looked at me was, "Female, about 15, found unconscious in an alley near Madison and Clark," one of them said quickly. "No ID, unresponsive, BP's low but stable. Possible drug overdose, but we're not sure. She's been in and out since we picked her up." I glanced at the girl. Thin, pale, tangled dark hair falling over her face. Dark smudges under her eyes like she hadn't slept in weeks. Her lips were cracked, and her skin looked almost gray under the hospital lights. She muttered something. I leaned in. "What's that?" Her eyelids fluttered, and she whispered hoarsely, "They'll come for me tonight." A chill ran down my spine. I looked at the paramedics, but they just shrugged. One of them muttered, "Yeah, she kept saying that in the rig. Probably just delirious." I nodded, pushing the uneasy feeling aside. Delirium, psychosis, maybe trauma. I'd seen worse. We moved her to room 17, a small, quiet space near the back of the ER. She barely reacted as I checked her vitals. No track marks, no visible injuries besides some old bruises on her arms. She wasn't high. I spoke softly. "Can you tell me your name?" No response. I sighed. "You're safe here, all right? No one's coming for you." That was a lie. By 2:30 a.m., the ER had quieted down. The drunk driver was in custody, the homeless man had left against medical advice, and the teenage girl with the bruised eye had gone home with her mother, who I was pretty damn sure was the one who put it there. The girl in room 17 hadn't moved. She lay there, silent, eyes closed. Not sleeping, just still. I sat in the break room with a cup of stale coffee, rubbing my temples. "You good?" I looked up. It was Holly, one of the night nurses. She was in her 50s, sharp as HLL, and had been working ER shifts longer than I'd been a doctor. "Yeah," I muttered, just thinking about the girl in 17. "She's creeping you out?" Holly smirked. "She's giving everyone the heebie-jeebies." I sighed. "I don't know. Something about her feels off." Holly shrugged. "Trust your gut." I didn't say it, but my gut was screaming at me. At 3:12 a.m., the power went out. Not just a flicker. The entire ER went black. For a second, there was nothing but silence. A deep, suffocating silence. Then a voice from the hallway. "Doctor, leave the room now, or you're next." Every hair on my body stood on end. The emergency lights should have come on, but they didn't. My phone, which had been at 50% battery, was dead when I tried to turn on the flashlight. I reached for the door handle, but something stopped me. Breathing. Right outside the room. Slow, shallow breathing. I turned back to the girl. She was wide awake now, staring at the ceiling, her lips trembling. "They're here," she whispered. A shadow moved under the door. Something was out there. My hands clenched. This was insane. Maybe I was exhausted. Maybe my mind was playing tricks on me. Then the door creaked open. There was nothing there. No one. Just darkness stretching into the hallway. I should have left. I should have walked away. But instead, I whispered, "Who's here?" A pause. Then, "They don't have a name." The girl's voice was small, terrified. "They don't leave a body. They just erase you." I stepped into the hallway. The air was colder here, wrong somehow, like stepping into a freezer. The hairs on my arms rose. I turned left. And I saw it. A figure, standing at the far end of the corridor. Tall. Too tall. Its arms hung limply at its sides, its head tilted slightly, like it was watching me. Then, in a blink, it was closer. I stumbled back. It hadn't moved. But it was closer. "Doctor." The voice wasn't coming from the figure. It was coming from inside my head. I turned back to the room. The girl was sitting up now, her wide, terrified eyes locked on mine. "You have to choose," she whispered. My throat was dry. "Choose what?" A deep, distorted voice whispered, right behind me. "You." I turned, but there was nothing there. The hallway was empty again. And then, the lights flickered back on. The monitors beeped. The distant sound of a phone ringing at the nurse's station. I was standing in the middle of an empty hallway, my breath shaky. I spun back into the room. The girl was gone. The bed was neatly made. The floor was missing. The monitors were off. Like she had never been there at all. At 6 a.m., I checked the security footage. At 3:12 a.m., the power outage was recorded. The hallway was pitch black for approximately 3 minutes. And at 3:15 a.m., the lights came back on. There was no footage of room 17. No record of the girl's admission. No intake notes, no vitals, no discharge papers. I asked Holly about it. She frowned. "What girl?" I opened my mouth, but the word stuck. That night, I sat in my car for a long time, staring at my phone. At 3:16 a.m., I had received a text from an unknown number. 2 words. "They remember." And beneath it, a photo. A still frame from the security footage. Of me, standing in that hallway. Alone. Talking to nothing. I sat in my car for nearly an hour after my shift ended, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles were white. I didn't move. I barely breathed. My mind kept looping back to the same questions. Who was she? Where did she go? And what the HLL had I seen? The rational part of my brain was scrambling for an explanation. Sleep deprivation? A stress-induced hallucination? A power failure mixed with paranoia? But none of that explained the missing records. None of that explained the text message. I swallowed hard and checked my phone again. The message was still there. They remember. The photo was still there too. A grainy, black and white still from the hospital hallway. Me, standing alone, staring at nothing. I shut my eyes, trying to steady my breathing. When I opened them, I made a decision. I wasn't letting this go. The next night, I came back to work an hour early. I went straight to the records office. St. Vincent's has an electronic system, but some things still get written down by hand, especially when dealing with unidentified patients. I searched through the logbook from the night before. Every patient admitted was recorded. The drunk driver, the homeless man, the teenage girl with the bruised face. But not her. Not the girl from room 17. Like she had never existed. A cold sweat prickled at the back of my neck. I shut the logbook and turned to the computer, pulling up last night's shift records. If I couldn't find her name, I could at least confirm the room assignment. Room 17. Unoccupied. I stared at the screen, my heartbeat hammering in my ears. Unoccupied? No. That was impossible. I had been in that room with her. The paramedics had brought her in. Holly had seen her too, hadn't she? I hesitated. Had she? I pushed back from the desk and stormed down the hall, my breath tight in my chest. Room 17 was empty. Clean. The sheets freshly made. No sign anyone had been there at all. I stood there, gripping the door frame, trying to stop my hands from shaking. Maybe I had lost my mind. Maybe Dr. Keaton? I flinched and turned around. It was Holly, frowning at me. "Didn't mean to sneak up on you," she said, eyeing me carefully. "You okay?" I opened my mouth, then closed it again. I could just ask her. I could just say, "Hey, remember the girl from last night? The one in 17? But something stopped me. Something cold and heavy in my gut. Because what if she said no? What if she looked at me the way she had this morning and said, "What girl?" Instead, I swallowed and forced a casual nod. "Yeah, just thought I left something in here last night." She didn't look convinced, but she let it go. "Long shift?" she asked as we walked back toward the nurse's station. "The longest." She chuckled. "Tell me about it." I forced a smile. Forced myself to breathe. Forced myself to push it all away. But I knew. Something had happened last night. Something real. And I wasn't going to stop until I found out what. The more I dug, the stranger things became. I went to the paramedics who brought the girl in. One of them, a younger guy named Reggie, hesitated when I asked. "Yeah, I remember picking her up," he said slowly. "She was out cold, muttering weird stuff." But when I asked him for the report, his brows furrowed. "That's weird," he muttered, flipping through his tablet. "I know I filed it." "Hold on, maybe there's a system error." He searched for several minutes, scrolling through digital records. Nothing. He frowned. "That's not possible." I wrote it up myself. I felt a sickening pull in my stomach. What about the other paramedic? He'd remember her, right? Reggie hesitated. What? I pressed. He exhaled slowly. He called in sick today. A cold shiver crawled up my spine. I tried not to let my face show anything, but inside, I was screaming. Hey, listen, Reggie said, lowering his voice. You ever see weird SHT around here? I stiffened. What do you mean? He glanced around before muttering, like, patients that don't exist. Files that vanish. Stuff that doesn't add up. My pulse picked up. You've seen things? I asked carefully. He shrugged, but his face was tight. Couple times. But, you say something, people think you're nuts. I stared at him, because I knew exactly what he meant. I barely slept that day. By the time my next shift rolled around, I was running on caffeine and nerves. I didn't care if I looked crazy. I went back to the security office, pushing to get access to the backup footage. I needed to see if there was any record of that girl. The night security guard, a guy named Victor, gave me a skeptical look when I made the request. You looking for something specific? He asked, pulling up the archive. Just checking a detail from last night, I said. He nodded and skimmed through the files. Then he frowned. That's weird. My stomach clenched. What? The backup footage is corrupt. Won't play. He sighed. Third time this month. IT says it's a storage issue. I forced my face to stay neutral. Of course. Of course the footage was gone. Victor gave me a sympathetic look. Sorry, man. If you're looking for something specific, maybe I can help. I hesitated. Then I decided to take a gamble. Room 17, I said carefully. Did you see anyone go in there last night? Victor paused. His brow furrowed. I don't know, he said slowly. Now that you mention it. I don't remember that room being in use. My skin crawled. I could feel it happening. The erasure. Like the night was slipping through my fingers. Like she had never been there at all. I walked out of the security office in a daze. And that's when my phone buzzed. A new message. No number. No contact name. Just 2 words. Stop digging. And below it, a new photo. Not from the hospital this time. From outside my apartment. Taken just minutes ago. Someone was watching me. And they wanted me to know it. I stood frozen outside the security office, my heart hammering in my chest as I stared at my phone screen. The photo was grainy, taken from a slightly tilted angle, as if the person had been hiding behind something. But there was no mistaking what it was: my apartment building. My window. My blood ran cold. Who the HL took this? I looked around instinctively, scanning the ER for anyone watching me. The nurses were busy, a few patients lingered in the waiting area, and the paramedics were chatting near the entrance. Everything looked normal. But it wasn't. Not anymore. I exhaled, forcing my hands to stop shaking as I locked my phone and shoved it into my pocket. I should go to the police. That was the logical thing to do. But what was I supposed to tell them? That a girl who doesn't exist vanished from the hospital, and now someone was sending me cryptic texts? They'd laugh me out of the station. I needed more. I needed proof. I barely made it through my shift. Every time I turned a corner, I expected to see someone lurking in the shadows. I checked my phone obsessively, half expecting another message, another photo. Nothing came. By the time I left the hospital at sunrise, exhaustion clung to me like a second skin. But I didn't go home. Instead, I drove straight to the alley where the girl had been found. Madison and Clark. A few blocks from the hospital. It was a narrow strip between 2 buildings, lined with dumpsters and broken bottles. It smelled like piss and rotting food. I stood there for a long moment, hands on my hips, trying to figure out what the HLL I was looking for. There was nothing here. Just a place where someone had dumped a girl no one remembered. I turned to leave, frustration bubbling in my chest. Then I saw it. A smear of something dark on the brick wall. I stepped closer, heart pounding. Blood. It had dried, nearly invisible against the red brick, but it was there. And next to it, scratched into the wall, "Don't let them take you." A shiver ran down my spine. I turned, suddenly feeling exposed. The street was empty, but the hairs on the back of my neck stood up like I was being watched. I needed to get the HLL out of here. I finally went home, locking my door behind me with shaky hands. I checked every room, every closet, even under the bed, before finally sinking into the couch. The exhaustion hit me all at once. I hadn't slept in nearly 24 hours, and my body was shutting down. I told myself I'd just close my eyes for a few minutes. Just rest. But as soon as I drifted off, the whisper came. Low. Right against my ear. "Doctor." My eyes snapped open. The room was dark. I sat up, heart hammering. I could feel it. Something was in here. The air was thick, suffocating. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. I didn't want to look. I did not want to look. But my hand moved on its own, reaching for it. The screen lit up. A new message. No number. No contact. Just 2 words. Too late. Then, the power cut out. Darkness swallowed the room in an instant. I shot up from the couch, my pulse pounding in my ears. My phone screen was the only light, casting an eerie glow over my shaking hands. The apartment was silent. Too silent. No hum of the fridge. No distant sound of traffic outside. Just nothing. I swallowed hard and forced myself to breathe. Power outages happened. It was just a coincidence. Right? I turned on my phone's flashlight and slowly scanned the room. Everything looked the same. The coffee table, the TV, the jacket I had tossed on the chair. But the feeling in the air was different. Heavy. Like something was here. Watching. I took a step toward the window. My building wasn't the only one affected. The whole street was dark. Even the traffic lights were out. A citywide outage? I turned back toward the hallway leading to my bedroom and stopped cold. The door was open. I was sure I had closed it before I fell asleep. I took a slow, careful step forward. My breath felt too loud, too sharp in the silence. My phone light trembled slightly as I lifted it. Something moved. A shadow. Not mine. It darted across the room, just beyond the reach of the light. I froze. I wanted to tell myself it was nothing, that it was just exhaustion playing tricks on me. But then I heard it. Breathing. Slow. Shallow. Right behind me. My body locked up. My skin went ice cold. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. The phone slipped in my sweaty grip, the light flickering wildly as I turned. Nothing. Just my empty apartment. The breathing was gone. I was alone. I stood there for a long moment, my heart racing, trying to convince myself I was imagining things. That stress and exhaustion were screwing with my head. Then my phone buzzed again. A new message. I didn't want to look. But I did. We're already inside. I nearly dropped the phone. My stomach twisted violently, nausea crawling up my throat. I had to get out of here. I grabbed my keys, yanked open the door, and stopped. The hallway was pitch black. The emergency lights should have been on. There should have been something, anything, but it was like the world beyond my door had been swallowed whole. My phone buzzed again. I didn't check it this time. I ran. The stairwell was just as dark. I took the steps 2 at a time, gripping the railing to keep from tripping. The whole building felt wrong, silent, empty, like I was the only person left in existence. I burst through the lobby doors and into the street. The city was dark. No streetlights, no headlights, no neon signs. Just a dead, black void stretching for miles. I wasn't alone. A few other people were outside, looking around in confusion. Some had their phones out, probably trying to call for help. But there was no sound, no voices, no traffic, no sirens in the distance. It was unnatural. Like the entire city was holding its breath. I turned in a slow circle, my pulse pounding. And that's when I saw them. Silhouettes. Lining the streets. Standing on the sidewalks. In the alleys. In the windows of darkened buildings. Dozens of them. Tall. Still. Watching. Not moving. Not breathing. Just watching. The same way it had watched me in the hospital. The same way I had seen it in the hallway. I stumbled back, my chest tight with panic. My phone buzzed again, and this time I looked. A new message. Don't run. They'll follow. I barely had time to process that before one of the figures moved. A single step forward. Then another. Then all of them moved at once. A slow, silent, synchronized step toward me. I turned and ran anyway. I ran. I didn't think. Didn't breathe. Just ran. The cold night air burned my lungs as I sprinted down the empty streets, the city still swallowed in unnatural darkness. I could hear them behind me, those slow, deliberate footsteps that never sped up but somehow always kept pace. I took a sharp turn down an alley, pressing my back against the brick wall, trying to steady my breathing. My mind was racing. I couldn't keep running forever. I needed to end this. I had no proof, no logic, just a gut feeling that this was all connected to her. The girl. The one from room 17. She had said, they'll come for me tonight. And now they were coming for me. But why? I squeezed my eyes shut, thinking, retracing every moment. The paramedics had found her in an alley. This alley. And she had vanished from the hospital without a trace. Or had she? I felt it then, an idea sparking in my mind, the truth slotting into place like a puzzle piece. She hadn't disappeared. She had been taken. And now, they were trying to take me too. I gritted my teeth, forcing down my fear. No. No more running. I had spent my entire career saving people. That's who I was. That's who I am. And I wasn't going to stop now. I pulled out my phone, my fingers moving before my brain even fully caught up. I had been playing their game, their rules. The fear, the isolation, the erasure, it all worked because I had been too scared to fight back. I tapped into the hospital's database. Room 17. It was listed as unoccupied, but I knew the logs had been erased. Fine, I would rewrite them. I opened a new patient entry and typed her in. Name, unknown. Age, approximate, 15. Date of admission, last night. Condition, found unconscious, disoriented. Mentioned she was being followed. I attached everything I remembered, the paramedics' report or lack of one, the missing security footage, the eerie messages. Every vanished detail. Then, with a deep breath, I hit save. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a low hum filled the air. The darkness around me shifted, like fog being peeled away, like something unraveling. I stepped back onto the street and froze. The city lights flickered on one by one, street by street, pushing back the endless void. The neon signs glowed again, the distant wail of sirens returned. And the figures? Gone. Like they had never existed. I stood there, panting, the weight in my chest slowly easing. Then, just as I thought it was over, a new message appeared on my phone. Thank you. No number. No name. Just 2 words. I stared at the screen for a long time before finally exhaling, a shaky, relieved breath escaping my lips. Somewhere, she was free. And so was I. The next day at the hospital, room 17 was back in use, occupied by an elderly patient recovering from surgery. No one mentioned the girl. No one remembered. But I did. And I made sure her file stayed in the system. Permanent. Unerasable. A record of what had happened. A record they couldn't erase again. I don't know who or what they were. But I do know one thing, I won.